I wake up already late for something I don't remember agreeing to. The ceiling above me is unfamiliar, cleaner, higher, expensive in a way that doesn't try to impress. Before I can finish the thought finishes itself for me. I am the Prime Minister of Israel. The title lands before the feeling does. It doesn't arrive with pride or purpose. It arrives like a heavy object dropped into my lap by mistake. My name, my new name, exists in secure databases, whispered in hallways, typed in subject lines marked urgent. I haven't said a word yet, and the world has already rearranged itself around me. Someone knocks, not to ask permission, to confirm reality. When the door opens, people straighten their posture instinctively.
Not because I earned respect, but because the position radiates it like heat. I notice it immediately. Eye contact lasts longer. Voices soften. Jokes disappear mid-sentence. Doors that would have required explanations yesterday now open silently. Rules don't vanish. They bend. Protection appears in the room before I notice the exits. This is the part no one talks about. Power doesn't feel like strength. It feels like being misfiled. Yesterday, I was a person with opinions. Today, I am a risk surface. Every movement triggers procedures. Every silence invites interpretation. I sit up in bed, and someone outside the room adjusts their stance. I clear my throat, and somewhere a message gets forwarded. The phone begins vibrating before I touch it.
Messages stack on top of each other, like unpaid debts. Security briefings, intelligence updates, requests that pretend to be optional. Each one assumes I understand contexts built over decades. I don't. I scan sentences filled with acronyms and consequences, words like response, escalation, window. Nothing here sounds temporary, except me. Assistants appear with polite urgency, asking how I want to proceed. Not if, how. They want decisions before coffee. They say it calmly, as if deciding things that affect borders, lives, and history is a reasonable morning activity. I nod too much. I nod like someone borrowing confidence. The strangest part is the wealth. It hums quietly in the background, invisible but undeniable. Cars waiting, residences maintained, resources standing by. None of it feels like reward. It feels like liability wrapped in comfort. Every word I might say today can travel faster than intent. Sarcasm can become policy. Silence can become strategy. A sentence, once spoken, no longer belongs to me. It belongs to headlines, analysts, and people who will never know what I meant. Power arrived without consent or preparation. It doesn't ask if I'm ready. It just stands there, watching, waiting to see what kind of damage a temporary person can do with permanent authority. I take a breath. Somewhere, someone notes the time. I decide early that if this power is temporary, then comfort is a waste of it. The first thing I do is say no to the script. Not publicly yet, just internally. I tell the aides I don't want the prepared statements, the softened language, the phrases that survive focus groups. They look at me the way people look at a fire alarm that won't stop ringing. I can feel the room recalibrating. This is already a deviation. In the first meeting, I speak too plainly. I describe the situation as it feels instead of how it polls. I say words like fear, exhaustion, moral cost. I don't balance them with slogans. I don't wrap them in historical metaphors. I watch people shift in their chairs, not because they disagree, but because honesty from someone in this chair violates an unspoken contract. Within minutes, summaries start circulating that smooth out my language. I said, "We don't fully control this anymore." The memo says, "Complex challenges remain." It's fascinating how fast reality gets edited. I leave the building without announcement. No cameras, no advance notice. Just a car and a request to go somewhere that isn't symbolic. A hospital wing that hasn't made the news cycle yet. A family whose story didn't photograph well enough to trend. I don't bring press. That alone becomes suspicious. By the time I arrive, reporters are already asking why I didn't invite them. An act meant to avoid spectacle becomes a spectacle of omission. I talk to people without offering solutions. That's apparently radical. I listen longer than expected. I don't promise timelines. Later, headlines will say I admitted uncertainty, as if uncertainty wasn't obvious to everyone living inside it. Back in the office, I ignore a carefully planned media appearance and instead answer a question I wasn't supposed to. I say that not every outcome will feel like victory, and that pretending otherwise insults the intelligence of people paying the price. The sentence travels faster than I do. Analysts debate what I really meant. Politicians clarify that I didn't mean what I said. Social media decides I meant everything. An ordinary action, answering honestly, becomes a threat vector. I approve aid quietly. No branding, no flags, no speeches. Just instructions to move resources where they're needed without attaching my name to them. This, too, causes problems. Apparently, help without attribution disrupts the narrative economy. Someone leaks it anyway. Now, it's framed as a secret maneuver. Transparency is praised until it can't be controlled. At lunch, I eat alone. That alone becomes commentary. A body language expert is quoted explaining my posture. Someone claims the choice signals resolve. Someone else calls it detachment. I was just tired. In the afternoon, I break a more serious rule. I acknowledge pain on multiple sides without ranking it. I refuse to compress suffering into a hierarchy. This creates outrage everywhere at once, which I learn is the most efficient way to anger everyone equally. Commentators accuse me of weakness, betrayal, courage, brilliance, and incompetence, sometimes in the same paragraph. What unsettles me isn't the criticism. It's how little my intent matters. By evening, I'm briefed on damage control for things I didn't know were damaged. Words I used carefully are now weapons in someone else's hands. Silence I chose deliberately is interpreted as strategy. A pause becomes policy. Power doesn't amplify truth. It amplifies interpretation. I start to see the pattern. Truth only matters when spoken by the right mouth, at the right altitude, inside the right frame. Outside of that, it mutates. Influence doesn't clarify reality, it bends it. As the day ends, I realize the most dangerous part of this role isn't making the wrong decision. It's how quickly meaning detaches from action, how easily a person becomes a symbol, and how eagerly symbols are used. Tomorrow, this power goes back to its owner. Tonight, it feels less like leadership and more like holding a live wire. Everyone arguing about what the electricity should be used for, while pretending it isn't burning whoever's holding it. The day doesn't end with an announcement. It just thins out. By evening, the room feels larger. Not because people left, but because their attention did. The phones still buzz, but less urgently. Messages that once arrived marked immediate now politely wait their turn. I can feel the protection loosening, not disappearing, just stepping half a pace back, like security already preparing to forget my walking pattern. This is the strange part. I lose influence before I lose identity. I'm still addressed by the title, but it already sounds ceremonial. Doors still open, but not automatically. Someone asks for confirmation they didn't need this morning. Rules that bent all day begin to remember their shape. Power doesn't shut off like a switch. It leaks away, quietly, while everyone pretends not to notice. I catch myself choosing words more carefully again, not because they matter, but because they're about to stop mattering. There's relief in that, and something close to grief.
I think about how tomorrow, the same sentences I spoke today would land differently, or not land at all. The same honesty would be called naive. The same silence would be ignored. Influence isn't about truth or clarity. It's about timing and altitude. When you descend, the signal fades. For one day, problems lined up to be addressed. Now, they're already drifting back into abstraction, into committees and timelines, and people who will inherit them like furniture they didn't choose. Fame didn't remove difficulty.
It just replaced it with pressure, isolation, and a level of surveillance that makes solitude feel rebellious. I joke, briefly, that borrowing power for a day is like borrowing someone else's winter coat, warm, impressive, and deeply uncomfortable by the end. Living inside it permanently must feel less like leadership and more like being on stage under permanent lighting, never sure which shadow is being watched. The exhausting part isn't decision-making, it's performance. The constant awareness that even sincerity has optics, that rest looks like weakness, that privacy looks like suspicion, that being human is a liability unless carefully scheduled. As night settles in, I realize something unsettling. The system doesn't miss me yet. It doesn't need to. Power is modular.
It snaps onto whoever occupies the space. The deference, the fear, the distortion, they're not personal. They're procedural. Tomorrow, I'll wake up as myself again. No escorts, no briefings, no sentences that ripple outward without permission. My words will shrink back to their original size. Doors will remember how to stay closed. Rules will stop bending on my behalf. I won't miss the pressure. I won't miss the noise. What I'll miss, briefly, uncomfortably, is how uneven the world becomes when influence enters the room, how reality rearranges itself for a title, how truth waits to see who is speaking before deciding whether it counts. I return to normal life not enlightened, just more aware, more disillusioned.
Fully conscious that power is both enormous and flimsy, easy to borrow, impossible to hold cleanly, and always temporary, even for the people who pretend otherwise. Disclaimer. This video is a fictional and satirical thought experiment created for entertainment and reflection. The scenario, narration, and actions presented do not represent the real views, decisions, intentions, or private life of any real individual holding public office. It is not a factual account and should not be interpreted as commentary on specific people or events. The purpose of this video is to explore the abstract experience of fame, authority, and influence, and to examine how power shapes perception, behavior, and meaning within society. Any resemblance to real situations is purely conceptual,